Senator Ali Roba. In fact, last year, I was trying to plead with my colleagues that we adopt the report of the Finance Committee, which had proposed that we give 407 billion shillings to counties as opposed to the 385 that had been passed by the National Assembly. Needless to say, my position then put me at odds with many of my colleagues in this House, and they were very unhappy every time I stood to speak and remind them of the options that were placed before this House and the choice they exercised. And they tried to paint me like a bad person. And as I say, Mr. Speaker, once bitten, twice shy. I will not be, taken in by some of the good sentiments that we are hearing coming from the senators here. I will wait for the actual vote. I will wait for the actual vote, because even last time, I heard very good things being said about how we need to support our counties, but on the day of the vote, I saw colleagues taking a totally different position. So I am looking forward. I want to see Senator Haji's vote. He has spoken very passionately. I want to see how Cherargei will vote, because that is where it counts. Mr. Speaker, number two, Mr. Speaker, reading the report of our committee on finance, I am a bit surprised by one thing. Mr. Speaker, if you see the submissions by the Commission on Revenue Allocation, the Commission on Revenue Allocation is the body mandated under Article 203, Mr. Speaker, to, among other things, use the criteria set in 203(1) to determine the shareable revenue for county governments. I am asking myself, how is it possible that last year the Commission on Revenue Allocation was proposing 407 billion shillings to go to counties, and this particular year they are proposing a lower amount of 391. I do not understand, and I would want a conversation with the CRA so that they explain to me. Under those criteria set out under 203(1), Honorable Speaker, if you look at D, one of the criteria is the need to ensure that county governments are able to perform the functions allocated to them. And if you go to 203(1)K, Mr. Speaker, another criteria is the need for flexibility in responding to emergencies and other temporary needs. As you are well aware, many of our counties right now are inundated by flooding or with flooding. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the county governor of Nairobi called the leadership, members of parliament and the Senate from Nairobi for a meeting. And people were extremely upset to see me in the same room with the governor. It is as if people expect that every time I see my governor, I should go on his neck or punch him in the face. When we do oversight, that is not the expectation. At a time of disaster response, it is very possible for Sifuna to be reasonable and sit across the table to undertake a very detailed conversation on the emergency disaster response that is going to towards assuaging the situation of the people of Nairobi. But I have seen very interesting comments that now Sifuna has been pocketed because of a picture of a meeting in a public place, in the presence of other leaders and in the presence of the media. But the point that I am making, Mr. Speaker, I think that if I'm going to be pocketed, I will not be pocketed in a public place. And the Speaker knows that it is impossible to pocket Sifuna, at least not publicly. It cannot happen. So I want the people of Nairobi to relax, that the job that they gave me to do, I will continue to do. But the reason I bring up...
Senator Sifuna, just leave the chair out of that line. Proceed.
I withdraw, Chair. Chair, the point that I was making on the question of disaster is that many of our counties are actually overwhelmed. We have about 900 million shillings for disaster response in Nairobi. And what most people don't understand is that disasters in Nairobi is a daily occurrence. We need to be able to enhance the capacity of county governments to be able to undertake this function. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, this year, I really beg our colleagues to vote for the higher amount as proposed of 415 by our own committee. Mr. Speaker, counties are also facing very difficult times because of high cost of living and, of course, the introduction of new taxation, which is something that, if you look at the CBK survey of market perceptions of January 2024, Mr. Speaker, I have that document here with me. And the perception is very grim, that because of the high cost of living, especially the inflationary trends, and because of the increased taxation and increased cost of goods, many of these counties are struggling. And it needs to be factored in the calculation of the final amount that goes to our counties. Mr. Speaker, of course, there is the question of pending bills. And as this House knows, out of the 460, the 160 billion plus of pending bills owed by all the 47 counties. Nairobi alone owes 107 billion in pending bills, which is 66% of all the pending bills owed by county governments. Mr. Speaker, our own Parliamentary Budget Office, in their report of February 2024, this is the 15th edition. Mr. Speaker, one of the proposals that have been made here, and I want to thank Dr. Masinde for making some of his recommendations, is that we need to provide and ring-fence money for payment of pending bills. Because, Mr. Speaker, many of these suppliers in these counties are absolutely devastated. People have not been paid for years. Their businesses have been closed, people have been auctioned, and yet we continue to talk about pending bills. That is why I supported the motion that was brought to this floor by the Senator of Narok, that we need to ring-fence money, and once money is sent to the county governments must make sure that they pay all those pending bills. Mr. Speaker, I want to finally speak on the question of overlap of functions. Mr. Speaker, again, I want to refer you to this report of our own Parliamentary Budget Office. If you go to page 58 of that report, Mr. Speaker, the Budget Office has highlighted areas where there are overlaps, and we continue to tell the national government, please get out of the business of county governments. And I was very happy, Mr. Speaker, when the CS for gender, for the first time a member of cabinet came here and told us, this is not the business of national government, we have no business staying in. And one of the areas that has been identified, Mr. Speaker, you will see, is actually library services. And if you read the report of the committee, the Treasury is deducting the library services money from county government's shareable revenue. But she confirmed herself here that the National Library that is at Milimani in Nairobi here is still in the hands of the national government. So they insist on sticking with the functions, and again they are deducting money that is meant for library services from the shareable revenue of the county and national governments. Mr. Speaker, this overlap has also been seen in places such as energy, where power transmission.
The time is up, Senator Sifuna. Senator Wakili Hillary.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the report by the Finance Committee on this particular